Hey, what's going on, y'all? It's X again. If y'all watching this is another episode of series recap. I think this is episode 11. And if y'all are interested in checking out my content, like, comment, and subscribe. These are like mini podcasts or whatever. I'm gonna be going back to some music and all that and the editing, top tier editing, once the NBA finals are done. I may do a series rebuild. I plan on doing it for probably the Philadelphia 76ers, considering how sad they went out this year. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah. If y'all are watching this, the Phoenix Suns have officially punched their ticket to the NBA Finals, and the Clippers fell short of a Finals run, or they fell short of an NBA Finals once again. But this wasn't a bad loss for the Clippers. This Clipper team would have went all the way if Kawhi Leonard had not gotten injured in the previous round against Utah. And even without his presence, they won. They were, I think, 4-4, so they were a 500 team. If you count games 5 and 6 of the Utah series, without Kawhi, and then the 6 game series here. They were 4-4, a 500 team, so it's still a pretty damn good team, and they were probably the most resilient team all year. And this is coming from a Laker fan. I remember when I posted that the Clippers have officially earned my respect. Um, they a lot of Laker fans were kind of getting mad at me because it's a sin to root for the Clippers. Nah, I'm not even rooting for the Clippers, bro. I'm just appreciating some pretty damn good basketball when I see it, and I gave the Clippers props for that reason. They played really great basketball. So the series would have been different had Kawhi Leonard not gone injured, but even then, they fought through a lot of adversity, and I just knew going into Game 6, bro, that the injuries would be too much, and at some point, that mental and emotional fatigue would come back to, I don't want to say to haunt them, but it's going to catch up to them, and it definitely did in Game 6. And I'm not surprised the Clippers had one final push in them because they were able to cut a 17-point lead down to 7. They went on a 10-0 run. I thought it was just gonna be, oh shit, another Clipper comeback. But I knew with the way Chris Paul and Devin had been playing and Jay Crowder hitting his threes, I just knew that that was the last push that the Clippers had. And I was talking to my dad about this. I just wonder if Game 5 was the last time we saw good Clipper basketball. If you don't know what I mean, let's put this into context. A team like the Miami Heat last year, they played phenomenal in that Game 5, and they won that game by single digits against my team in Game 5 when they were down 3 games to 1. 2 days later, they played back in Miami, quotes around that because I know they were in a bubble, and they played out of sync and they played out of sorts. So I knew deep down that something like that was gonna happen to the Clippers because, like I said, at some point the emotional fatigue as well as the mental fatigue from all the comebacks they had against the Dallas Mavericks and the Utah Jazz, I knew that was gonna catch up to them, and it eventually did in Game 6. But hey, they went out. They tried to make a fight in Game 6. Like even when they were down 20, they showed no quit, and eventually the Suns were too much, and I'll get to the Suns. So this Suns team is something special. And even with the Lakers healthy, I still think the Suns would be number 2 because of the way they've been playing all season, and of course the leadership of the guy you see in the number 3 jersey, Chris Paul, and then Coach Monty Williams, and then you have Jay Crowder, who has been in the finals last year with Miami. This team I knew was going to be something special, and they were the biggest surprise in the NBA this year. And bro, Devin Booker is not a playoff. I think, in the words of a Nuggets announcer, because I think he said this one time about Gary Harris. Shout down to Buck again, because he posted Gary Harris highlights from the playoffs in 2019. That Nuggets announcer said he was not looking like a playoff neophyte. And I could say the same thing about Devin Booker. I expected Devin Booker to come out flat and be a little shaky, and like nobody expected the Suns team to make the finals the way they did, being the defending champion, beating the Clippers. Like, look, they're the only team in NBA history to beat both LA teams in the same postseason twice. They did it against the Lakers in 2006 after Kobe's game winner, and then the next round they had to face the LA Clippers. So that is definitely a fun fact. But I just hate how people are discrediting the Suns because they only made it to the finals because teams were injured. Like, okay, does that mean Kawhi Leonard's ring doesn't count with the Raptors because Steph and Clay were injured? Are we not counting Devin Booker's or and Chris Paul's first ring just because of injuries that were out of their control? In that case, we should discredit the Golden State Warrior ring in 2015. We should discredit the Raptors ring in 2019. So it's just that we need to stop all this. Oh, well, they only won because of this injury, and this injury. Every team has injuries that is out of their control or the out of the opposing team's control. So the Suns didn't magically cause other players to get injured. It's just bad luck for a team, especially in the case of the Lakers, that was favored to win. It was just bad luck on their side. So a lot of people are discrediting the Suns, but at the same time, people are really forgetting the fact that those other rings, like the ones I mentioned with the Raptors and the Warriors in 2015, they were also caused by injuries. In 2015, Kyrie and Kevin Love were injured. In 2019, of course, as I mentioned, Clay and Kevin Durant were also injured as well. So every ring is legitimate, and every finals run is legitimate also. So let's not discredit the Phoenix Suns just because, well, our favorite team is out. Like, yes, the Lakers would have made it to the finals with AD healthy and with LeBron at 100%. But let's face it, we had the players to keep it close against the Phoenix Suns, and we did not. Schroeder was absolutely dog shit for us. Matthews was dog shit. Gasol was not even good. Drummond, I don't even know why the hell we signed him. Like, we signed him because, well, who else are we going to sign? But I'm not going to make this about the Lakers. But, anyways, congratulations to the Phoenix Suns. They definitely earned my respect. Same with the Clippers. And, yeah, that's enough of me talking about both teams. Now let's get into the games of this particular series. So this series was closer than we expected. Like, I'm not joking. Games 1 and 2 uh, were won in very close fashion, right? In game 1, after that emotional Utah win last Friday night or a couple Fridays ago, um, they had to go, which was an emotional win for the Clippers. They had to go to Phoenix, Arizona for game 1 2 days later. So they had to instantly switch gears and realize that they're in the Western Conference Finals. And look, the Clippers lost playing their best basketball in game 1. Game 1 was a score of 120 to 114. And the Clippers played their best basketball. It's just that the Suns were better. The Suns were better. Paul George was absolutely phenomenal in game 1. 34 points. Reggie Jackson had 24. I mean, a lot of guys like Morris could have stepped up for the Clippers in game 1. That could have helped him out a lot. But look, Devin Booker is something special, man. Like, I'm not joking when I say that. He's something special. 40, 13, and 11 in game 1. That shit is special. It is special. Now, I'm not going to go as far as to saying he's the next Kobe because I think that's absurd. But, he's inherited his play style, I'll admit. But I don't think he has the going for the kill mentality. Not yet. Not yet. But just right now, he does not have that. At some point in later on in his career, he will, but he's just not there right now. But again, in game 1, the Clippers lost playing their best basketball. I think that and game 3 and game 5, that was the best version of Clipper basketball in this playoffs without Kawhi. Of course, games 5 and 6 in Utah, but I'm just talking about in the conference finals alone. So, game 2, They played pretty lackluster basketball, despite what the score sheet tells you. Paul George 26, 6 and 6, Reggie Jackson 19, Big Zoo 14 and 11, Luke Kennard 10 points. They played really lackluster basketball, and you don't want to do that against this Phoenix Suns team. And look, the Phoenix Suns, the games they lost, their players were just not hitting shots. Like outside of Booker being pretty good and Chris Paul being pretty playing pretty well, you know what I mean? The other players just couldn't hit shots. Like I know Cameron Payne was big in game 2 and DeAndre Ayton was a huge factor in 5 of the 6 games that they played in these conference finals. I'm just talking about guys like Mikal Bridges and Jay Crowder. They just couldn't hit their shots in timely fashion. That was the case in game 2 as well, but they won that shit by a fingernail. And of course, Paul George missing those 2 free throws didn't do them any justice at all. Game 3 was a really good bounce back game by the Clippers. I think that was a much needed win for them because if they if they lost game 3, they were going to get swept. But even then, it wouldn't be a bad loss because nobody expected them to make this far. I sure as hell did not, especially with Kawhi Leonard getting hurt in the Utah series. Everybody expecting them to lose. Hell, I did not expect them to come out the way they did. But game 4, both teams. I was watching the game at my workplace. Like I was watching like bits and pieces of it. You feel me? I thought both teams played lackluster basketball because remember, game 4, the final score was 84-80. But the more I look at it, the more I just feel like that was a game of defense. Because remember, at one point in the fourth quarter, there was a long 4 minute stretch where neither team could really score. You know what I'm saying? Like, look, Booker was pretty good in an 84-80 game. He had 25 points. DeAndre Ayton 19 and 22. Chris Paul 18, 4 and 7. But here's the thing. Again, neither team on either side could really hit shots. Like in the with the Clippers 8 points, of course, Paul George and Reggie, they played really well for what it's worth. But it just felt like both teams clamped each other, and neither team actually the Suns hit kind of timely shots and they hit timely free throws. Meanwhile, the Clippers could not hit their shots. So game 5, I think it was just a more of a matter of both teams clamping each other. It's just that Phoenix was able to make timely shots, when it mattered. And I did not expect the Clippers to win game 5. I thought this was going to be, oh shit, great season Clippers. They had hell of a run and, it's just Phoenix's night tonight. They proved me wrong once again. Again, the guys could not hit shots. Cameron Payne did not play well. Jay Crowder and Bridges did not play well. DeAndre Ayton, for what it's worth, he only had 10 points and 11 boards, and he was able to increase that in Game 6. Booker played well for what's worth, and Chris Paul played okay, but the Clippers just played better in that Game 5. Like I did not expect them to win Game 5 the way they did in pretty convincing fashion. That just convinced me that this Clippers team was the most resilient. They didn't make any excuses. Well, they kind of did, but it's a legitimate excuse. If Kawhi were playing, this series would have been different. And if Serge Ibaka was playing too, Serge Ibaka was a key. A lot of people forget that Serge Ibaka was a key piece, and he got hurt in Game 2 versus Dallas. Like I don't know what's wrong with his back, but something bad was happening in there. You know what I mean? That kept him out for the rest of the postseason. So losing him didn't make that situation better. And then Kawhi, it's just that, they're still going to play good basketball, but how much of it were they going to keep up? And they played their best basketball again in Game 5, like I said. Paul George had 41, 13, and 6, and Paul George scored 30 second half points, which I was genuinely impressed. You feel me? Like, it was something that Kevin Durant did in Game 5 versus Milwaukee, where he had a damn near 50 points, a 50-point triple-double, and Paul George was 4 assists away from a 40, 13, and 10 game, similar to what Booker had in Game 1. And more Morris played well the last two games. Like, I clowned the Clippers for signing Marcus Morris to that $64 million contract. But at this point in the season, I still think he's overpaid. But I think he is a key part to this Clipper team. And Reggie Jackson, he was nothing short of phenomenal these playoffs. He played like an absolute all-star. And with his attitude, like he wanted to be the guy in Detroit. He didn't want to play behind Westbrook and KD because of his ego. And remember, he was 23, 24, 25 years old, where he wanted to take the big shots. But now at this point, you know, even though Reggie does take dumb shots, he does let the game come to him. And I'm really impressed and I'm really proud of Reggie Jackson. Now, whether he stays with the Clippers or not remains to be seen. I think the Clippers should re-sign him, but even if they do lose out on him, you still get opportunities to sign Kyle Lowry and maybe get a guy like George Hill coming off your bench. Increase the bench depth a lot more. But overall, this series is one of the more reasons why the Clippers, as a Laker fan, they deserve my respect, and nobody expected them to make nobody expected them to make it this far. And Game 6, it wasn't about what the Clippers did wrong. It's just everything about what the Phoenix Suns did right. Like, they played a lot more in sync, they played a lot more motivated, and they played a lot more in tune in Game 6, right? And as soon as Jay Crowder was starting to hit shots, I was just like, man, that could be it. If Jay Crowder starts hitting shots, then this Phoenix Suns team is clicking on all cylinders. DeAndre Ayton played pretty well, 16 and 17, so he was a bit better than he was. Well, he was a lot better than he was in Game 6, Game 5, because he adjusted to the zone defense from the LA Clippers. Now, again, the LA Clippers tried to fight back. They cut the lead, a 17-point lead, to 7, and then Chris Paul just silenced the crowd. And I'm starting to think, bro, that Chris Paul's magic number in closeout games is 41. And the reason why I say that is because 3 years ago when he was at Houston, they were one win away from reaching the conference finals, which at the time was something Chris Paul has never done. You feel me? Like, in 2015, he had a chance to clinch the conference finals, but they basically sold the bag to Corey Brewer and Josh Smith. Oh, those were also fun times for Clipper fans. Also fun times. But no, 3 years after that loss, Chris Paul scored 41 in Game 5 in that closeout game against Utah, where they won that game 112 to 102, and he had 0 turnovers. Here, he basically duplicated that performance with 41, 4, and 8 with 0 turnovers. So I think 41 points and 0 turnovers is Chris Paul's magic number to clinch a damn series. Now, I know in Game 4 against Denver, I think he had 37 points. He was phenomenal in that series too. But like I said, this Suns team all around was just so special. And they were a pretty enjoyable team to watch. And I just hate how people are discrediting them because, oh, the Lakers were injured. The Clippers were injured. And they had a lucky run. It's just, if that were the case, then Kawhi's ring with Toronto was a lucky run because Clay and KD were hurt. And the Warriors, they were lucky that, Mike Conley had, shit, Mike Conley, Kyrie and Kevin Love were injured. So I think we should stop discrediting teams just because, the other team that was favored to win, they didn't have the key players on that team. Now, if they had said key players on that team, would they have won the series? Yeah, absolutely, and more than possibly. But let's stop discrediting this team. All right, they're a really special team, and I think they have a chance to win their first championship in history, or in franchise history. And Chris Paul can win a ring for the first time in his career. Like, come on, man. Like, let's stop discrediting teams just because injuries happen on the other side, which is totally out of their control. And I think it's unfair to the Suns team because they had a great run regardless. Like, I just get so pissed off when I see people discrediting the Suns. Like, other rings that had key players that were injured don't count now. Like, come on. That's just petty as hell. Like, oh my gosh. I didn't want to make this a rant about how toxic NBA fans can be, and sometimes those fans can just ruin the sport and ruin the love of the game because it's just like just because it's not their favorite team, and their favorite team was injured doesn't mean the other team didn't play well. Like like I said, you know what I'm saying? Um, the Suns outplayed the Lakers in games 5 and 6. Like I know Anthony Davis was injured, right? But it doesn't change the fact that we still had enough players to keep it close with the Suns the same way the Clippers did. Meanwhile, we waved the white flag as soon as Anthony Davis went down, and no other players can step up, right? Like Schroeder, we expected him to be what Reggie Jackson was for the Clippers, and he absolutely could not deliver at the most crucial time. And LeBron, he didn't look like LeBron out there. Like I know he had a high ankle sprain. Like I was supposed to discuss this in my Lakers video, but okay, I'm like drifting off the topic. You guys know what I'm gonna say, but yeah, this Suns team is something special. I think they are legit, and I think they would have made the conference finals regardless whether it's against my team. Had we just stayed healthy, we would have been the number one seed over Utah. They would have faced the Suns or Clippers regardless of how their path to the finals turned out. So I'm impressed with the Suns team. I'm impressed with what the Clippers have done all season long. Like, look, I basically, when I was not filming videos, I clowned the Clippers a lot. Well, except for that one video where I said the Clippers were down bad and terrible. Wow, how far they came from me slandering them, and I was ready to get my memes ready at if they went down against Dallas. They were down 0-2 and it was not a good look, but they responded. They earned my respect after that series, and they earned my respect after the Utah series too. Because again, everybody and their mothers expected them to lose. Everybody expected them to lose and Kawhi to leave when they were down 0-2 against Dallas. And I thought they were going to lose because, and at least they had a legit excuse to lose. Because if we would have won it had LeBron AD been healthy, the Clippers would have won that series. And I'm just talking about in the context if they lose that series against Utah, I would have said the same thing that look, if Kawhi were playing, this would be a easy 6 game series or a 4 game series in favor of the Clippers. And that ended up being a 6 game series, and they won that series in a very emotional and very respectable fashion. Like I thought this was gonna be classic Clipper choke in game 6, and they came back down 25, and that was nothing short of phenomenal. That was absolutely phenomenal. And that's why they earned my respect. And a lot of Laker fans were mad at me because I'm giving the other team props and I'm just appreciating good basketball. But we ain't gonna talk about it. So congratulations to the Suns. I hope they do win a ring. And I was gonna talk about how the injury bug basically ruined these playoffs, but I did not want to ruin the topic because let's face it, the injury bug has basically killed this NBA season. Now, whether it's the this weird off season where certain teams got proper rest, certain teams got longer rest, and teams like the Miami Heat and the Lakers got shorter rest, I don't know, man. Like, I didn't want to make a video because I feel like I would be contradicting everything I said about how I just appreciate good basketball when I see it. So I don't want to make it sound like, oh, well, what if these players were injured? What if this player wasn't injured and all that? So I wasn't gonna make that video now that I came to that final decision. But this injury bugged, this injury bug, they did suck this year. And it did ruin some teams' hopes of a championship. It ruined the Lakers' hopes for I was about to say a three-peat, a back-to-back title, and it ruined the Clippers' hopes of reaching the NBA Finals. I don't think the Denver Nuggets would have made much of a difference with Murray in. Offensively, they would have, but again, it wasn't their offense that killed them. It was their lack of defense and their lack of defensive depth. I mean, the Suns were the better team at the end of the day. Let's face it. The Suns were the better team. They it's called taking advantage of opportunities. Like, had they lost against an injured Lakers team or an injured Clippers team, I know some NBA fans would be like, ha ha ha, Chris Paul choked again. Chris Paul choked. This Suns team are frauds, but they're getting called frauds now that they won and they showed that, look, they're not a team to mess with. They're not some random frauds that just absolutely became good this year. Look, I knew this Suns team with Devin Booker was due for a playoff run after their run in the bubble. Like, they looked like the same old Suns last year, but when the bubble came, they looked like a completely different team. They were undefeated, and they absolutely proved their worth. And the leadership of guys like CP3 and Jay Crowder really did wonders for them. And of course, getting a guy like Torrey Craig from Milwaukee absolutely helped their case out. And yeah, I hope CP3 gets his first ring. So yeah, that was a long video. Again, another episode series recap under my belt. If it sounds like fuck, I'm stuttering a lot, bro. If it sounds like I'm stuttering a lot, it's just because that unscripted videos can be something. You feel me? Like, sometimes these unscripted videos can really mess up my thought process. And if y'all can tell, I sound a whole lot better. I'm not sick anymore. When I made the Clippers earn my respect video, I did not feel at my best. You feel me? Like, but I'm back and I'm better than ever, and I'm ready to finish off this series. And I only have one more episode of series recap, and that'll be for the Eastern Conference Finals. So, what's the future of series recap after the conference finals are over? So, depending on how the NBA Finals goes, I will be making game recaps similar to what Kenny and Rusty have been doing. I'll be doing a game to game to game recap every game they play. So if I do happen to miss a game, that video will be uploaded the day after. But after the game, as soon as I catch that opportunity to watch the game and without missing it because I have work, you know what I mean? I will be filming that video and I will upload it as soon as a couple hours after the game ends because I'm filming on iMovie and it does take long. The rest of the story, but yeah. So for the NBA Finals, it will still be part of the series recap series. It will, but it's not going to be a series in its. I'm not going to wrap up the NBA Finals as a series. You feel me? I'll be doing game to game to game recaps. I'll be probably doing the first two games because Phoenix will have home court advantage for the first two games, and I will go over games 1 and 2, and then I'll go over games 3 and 4, games 5, 6, and 7. Yada yada yada. So yeah, this is my second to last episode of wrapping up a series recap, and then I'll be doing a NBA Finals recap if that makes sense. So yeah, thank you guys for watching my video. Again, like, comment, and subscribe. Whatever the hell I said at the beginning of the video. That's the end of this video. I'm X. Deuces.